everyone. Thank you for finally getting this group together. I know it's been a very long time coming, and I'm really excited to be the staff lead at the city, as well as with Kat Blair assisting with this group. So, Mayor, I know you wanted to say just a few words to welcome everyone. I appreciate
I just want to
that.
welcome you all. This is a very important committee. You've got some great work to do over the years to come here, and I'm also very happy we finally got this going and got you all together. It's a great group here too, put together to work on this. So without further ado, let's get started.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying those words.
Sure.
I'm just going to do a quick roll call, and then I'd like us to go around the room and introduce ourselves if we could.
I'm not listed.
You're not
I
listed.
added you.
I'm sorry. Another mistake.
I just thought I'd mention that
Yeah.
if you're going to do roll call.
Yeah, let's get that correct the first time, right? Okay. Matt Puz.
Present.
That's it. Sister Pat Lupo.
Here.
Aaron Kerr.
Here.
Michael Campbell. You go by Michael. Okay.
Here.
Freda Tepfer.
Here.
Bob Howden.
Here.
Yes. And I'm sorry.
Sam Mason.
Sam Mason. Sorry.
That's
And if we could just start, Matt, if you wouldn't mind starting, just introducing yourselves to the committee and whatever you'd like to bring, whatever you'd like to say to introduce yourself, where you work, maybe your interest in why, the board, whatever.
Okay.
Be great.
Yeah, hi, my name's Matt Puz. I'm the Zoning and Development Officer for Mill Creek Township. Actually, I worked for the city for 6.5 years as well in zoning. The reason why I'm interested in environmental issues is because in first, second grade, they showed us pictures of animals with six-pack rings around their throat. And from there, I've always wanted to, protect the environment.
Thank you.
I am Sherry Mason, but I go by Sam, as many of you all know already. My interest in the environment, since that seems to be our prompt, I'll just started with the green hair episode of Different Strokes, when Kimberly washed her hair with rainwater and it turned it green because of acid rain. I was 10, and that just started me on the trajectory. So there you go, green hair. It wasn't cool back then. Nowadays, it's cool, but late 70s, it was not cool. All right, there you go.
I'm Bob Howden. I'm happily retired. And I'm a member of the board of directors of the Asbury Woods Nature Center. And I've been interested in environmental activities since I was in college. When I started, I've been a member of the Sierra Club since 1974. And as a former chair of the Lake Erie Group. And Pat and I go back a long way with various environmental activities. So it's just something that's been a passion of mine for many, many, many years.
Great. Thank you. Welcome.
Pat Lupo. I'm a Benedictine sister. I teach at the Inner City Neighborhood Art House, and I represent the Benedictines on a number of different boards in town. I don't know. I've always been interested in the environment. I think it started with me and my dad doing things when I was young, and when I was teaching, it was always much more fun to get kids interested in the environment than in reading or writing or arithmetic. We always had a lot of fun, and I was always in a situation where I could take kids outside and have them explore their environment.
Aaron Kerr. I'm in the 11th month of a new environmental justice nonprofit called Groundwork Erie. And we, this summer, developed our first green team, which was a youth development corps of 7 kids who learned about the watershed, but also did important conservation work in various parts of the city. I taught for 12 years at Gannon University, where I developed an environmental ethics course as well as a philosophy of place class, and I have a couple of writings on environmental ethics, and I'm just very happy to be a part of a group that is putting this at the center of the city's policy.
Thank you.
My name's Freda Tepfer, and I'm retired and live in Erie. I'm an avid native plant gardener. I think it's important for maintaining and restoring our biodiversity, protecting stormwater, air quality, and one of my lifetimes was working in providing voluntary technical assistance to businesses around hazardous waste. And one of the cooperators of the group I worked with introduced me to the phrase enlightened self-interest. So one of, I guess, my goals would be to have more people in this town have a sense of enlightened self-interest of why they want to do things in a more environmentally sound way.
I'm Joe Schember. I'll just give you a little background. I was born and raised here in Erie, and as a young boy, I wanted to be a Catholic priest. Went to Mass every day. I went to Sacred Heart Grade School, and they took us to Mass during the week, but I went Saturdays and, of course, Sundays as well. And I'm amazed my parents let me do this, but for 9th grade, I left home and moved into St. Mark's Seminary. I was one of 65 boys in the freshman class there. We lived there. We got home for holidays, and we were home for summer, but other than that, we lived there. 35 of us graduated together, and they're kind of all like my brothers because we basically grew up together, got to know each other. And after graduation, for about almost 20 years, we got together every summer out in the woods somewhere. And, there was a lot of booze available and stuff. But then I finally got my wife to marry me. I fell in love with Rhonda after I left the seminary. It took me 10 years to convince her to marry me, and sometimes she's still not sure. We've been married over 40 years now, but sometimes she still thinks she may have made a mistake. But when I left the seminary, though, after 6 years, after my sophomore year of college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I was always enjoyed English. I was good at reading and writing, and so I got an English degree from Gannon. Didn't know what I was going to do, but I got a graduate assistantship at the University of Dayton to get a master's in English. I got that. As I approached the end of that, after 2 years, I taught 2 classes, a freshman composition, and then in the evenings got my degree. I didn't know what I was going to do, but my mom was still on the St. Mark's board, seminary board. And Father Haggerty, who ran St. Mark's when I was there, just got assigned to Elk County Christian High School in St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. And he was talking to my mom after the meeting and said, I'm looking for an English teacher. And my mom said, Joe just got a master's in English. So he called me, and I went there for 2 years, which is about 2.5 hour drive out in the woods, basically, from Erie there. So towards the end of my second year, I told Father I wasn't going to come back. I was going to move back home to Erie, and ended up falling into a great job with PNC Bank. I had a lot of different jobs there. I really, really enjoyed that. I never thought I'd have a career in finance, but then so when I got my first position was a teller on the teller line. I earned $4,500 a year back then. This was a long time ago. But they paid for any business education. So I said, I'm gonna get an MBA from Gannon. I went full time while I was working there. After about a year, they figured out what I was doing, and they doubled my pay, put me in a management training program, and I won't go into any more details, but it was a great career. When I retired there, it was so I could run for mayor, and was lucky enough to get elected and reelected to a second term 2 years ago. And I can serve one more term, and I'm hoping I can get reelected to that. But if people don't want me, that's okay too. I understand. I've got a great team. You're meeting a couple of them here today, and we just have a great team. I could probably not even accomplish 5% of what we're doing without the great team I work with. So sorry I went on so long, but that's kind of my background.
I'm Mike Campbell, and I've been teaching at Mercyhurst, formerly college, now university, since 1984, and I'm about to retire in the spring. And, every day I celebrate the fact that that's the last time I have to do something, but at the same time, I'm a little worried that I'm not going to be busy enough. So I'm happy to have a part in this committee. And
You could work for Groundwork Erie.
okay. But I've taught biology and environmental science courses my whole career, and I feel like I got a good perspective. I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and my first environmental crusade was to save Stony Valley. You know, it was to be developed from a wilderness, and I remember I had a bumper sticker back in the 1970s to save Stony Valley. But I stood up on a stage in the first Earth Day when I was in the 8th grade, holding a stick in the air, pretending to be a tree. My proudest accomplishment is to have had good students like Sarah Peelman over here, who was a student of mine at Mercyhurst, and I look forward to bringing to the table whatever I can to help advance the cause of improving environmental health for people in here.
My name is Kat Blair. I'm the executive assistant to the chief of staff. I have a background in environmental, basically I have a degree in environmental studies. So I haven't unfortunately really been able to work in that field, but I'm glad to help out the EAC and provide any assistance to Jackie and to the group that I can.
I was happy to find out, and I said, hey, do you want to come and help out on the board? But so my name is Jackie Spry, and I'm the fairly new Director of Planning and Neighborhood Resources at the City of Erie. I was working at the city for the last 2 years with the ARP program manager with the American Rescue Plan funds, and my background is in city planning. And there is always a component of the environment in city planning and doing any kind of master plan, design, whatever it is. And so when I was asked to be the staff lead on this group, I was really excited because this is an interest of mine. And I'm very happy to meet all of you, and I think we have a great group, and I'm excited to be working with you and beside you. So. Second item on our agenda today, we have the approval of minutes, but we have no minutes yet. So, Kat, I believe you are going to be taking the minutes for this meeting, and then moving forward as we develop the structure of this group, we can certainly talk about how we're going to roll out the minutes, who's going to be responsible for that if we end up wanting to assign certain chair and member or positions to the board members. Okay, any questions on that? Item number 3 is public comment. I'm not sure who we have online or if there's anybody.
We do have
some
some questions from online. The question was from Mr. Randy Winchell. To my understanding, these folks are being paid to round up volunteers, as is correct. And I believe 2 people asked in regards to payment.
I had to pay for parking.
We are volunteers.
Yes.
We are not getting paid.
Yeah, they want to know if the board members are paid.
No,
So.
no, the board members are not getting paid. They are doing this out of their own kindness of their heart. So yes, this is not a paid board. Oh, I'm sorry, I have them right here. Yes, apologize, I forgot to put it in there. Thank you. Is there anything else online, Kat?
That's just 2 in that realm. I haven't gotten anything else.
And does anyone have any comments that they'd like to make out in the pub? Anything out in the any public comments?
I'm always good for comment. Leopold, from Erie. Want to welcome everyone to the inaugural meeting of the EAC. It's been a long time in the process, and I certainly appreciate you offering your time and your expertise for the benefit of the city and the citizens of Erie. This is something I believe is sorely needed. It would be wonderful to have an environmental lens through which different items that you choose can be looked at and appropriate action taken. And obviously advice, because you're an advice council. And I wanted to say thank you for offering to serve, and we look forward to your activity.
Thank you.
My name's Jenny Tompkins. I'm the campaign manager for Clean other advocacy in the future. I want to thank the folks who are, going to be members of the EAC who helped me and other partners research and coordinate with other EACs to learn from the experience of these bodies that have been able to be enacted since 1973 in Pennsylvania. Just serving as a reminder, we are absolutely recreating the wheel and advocating for the formation of this group. Our calculation is that you're the 161st EAC in Pennsylvania, which I'm sure Carol from We Can Serve PA will dive into in great detail about what that means. Excited that you're all here. There are a lot of other EACs to learn from, though, so I encourage you. There are 160 of them, as I just mentioned, that you could touch base with and get resources from. And we, in researching this idea and doing outreach about it, gathered a lot of resources like bylaws that you are going to be thinking about before your next meeting probably. So I'm always happy to be a resource too, and We Can Serve PA is the statewide resource for EAC. So don't forget that those exist. Thanks.
Anyone else have another public comment? Anyone else? Okay, great. So we'll move on to new business, and there is not going to be a meeting in December. I thought maybe we could schedule it, but I think just because of the holidays and where they fall, we are not going to hold a meeting in December, which would take us to January. And at that meeting, I also would like to bring 2 other presenters. Does that mean that somebody's on or that needs to speak? Okay.
No, we're good.
So I was hoping to have a 2-hour session the first time that we met, but it's okay the way that it worked out with people's schedules. I wanted to make sure that we had a good foundation and a good basis to start from, and that's why we have this presenter from We Can Serve PA today to talk about, Carol Grayshaw, to talk about the structure and function of EAC, and then the next meeting in January, I would like to Jenny Tompkin and actually Porter, his name is, I'm sorry, Porter Stevens. Yes.
Porter.
They're going to both give they're going to talk about really the history and the work that's been done up until this point, because a lot of work has been done in this realm. And so that we are sort of all on the same page, starting from the beginning, and we're all together knowing what has already been done, and also that we have a grant opportunity that Porter will talk to us a little bit about and how we can use that money. So that's next time. Also, I wanted to mention that December 14th, which is in just 2 weeks, at 10 a.m., we are scheduled for the mayor's press conference. Yes, that will be here. For those that hopefully can make it, we would like to announce all of you at that time, and just talk generally about what the EAC is, what we plan to accomplish generally, because we don't know that quite yet, and then be able to just showcase the council. So I hope you can make it. I'll make sure to send out reminders from now till then about it. And I believe the press conference is in this room. Yes. Okay. And then we're on to our main event here today. Carol Grayshaw. Actually, I was told about Carol through Jenny Tompkin, and through Sarah Peelman. I believe that the city has worked a little bit with We Can Serve PA, and Carol is the Director of Education at We Can Serve PA, and I happen to, and I've sent some of those materials to you, I happen to find a really great handbook, an EAC handbook that they produced, and it talks more about the function and structure of EACs, and really was a great resource that I thought that we could use for this board. And I asked Carol if she would come and give a presentation to you and best practices, and go in to set a foundation again. So Carol, I hope that you can hear me okay. And we have monitors around us so we can see the screen. I know you were planning to share a presentation.
Right now, EACs are primarily concentrated in the southeast, but with Erie and a few others popping up in Allegheny County and to the western and central parts of the state, we're very excited to see it sweeping across the entire Commonwealth. The southeast does not have, they don't get to be the only ones that have EACs because they are so valuable to their communities that are lucky enough to have them. So I'm really glad that you guys are getting started, and here to help in any way that I can. So we'll go ahead and get started today. So a little bit of the beginning of this presentation is going to be pretty basic. It's going to be a review for most of you, but if you're not familiar with an EAC before your service on the Erie EAC, we'll just go through this quickly. So environmental advisory councils are officially created advisory bodies of municipal government. And that word advisory, that's going to come up a lot in my presentation today. EACs are authorized by Pennsylvania Act 148 of 1973, which was amended in 1996. And any elected official or a resident of a community may propose the establishment of an EAC, but the establishment of the EAC must be passed by an ordinance in order to go through. And EACs advise local government officials on matters primarily of environmental concern. Tasks undertaken by EACs are determined by the needs and priorities of the municipality that it serves, and these priorities may change over time. So while you can look at what other communities are doing to get ideas for projects that your EAC can undertake, your priority list is really going to be developed based on the needs of your specific community. EACs may identify areas of environmental concern and recommend actions to be taken. So some examples of this could include organizing stream cleanups, water and or air quality monitoring, advising on recycling programs. A lot of EACs will do like battery recycling or e-recycling or paper recycling days. They'll set those up with community groups. Researching and advising on alternative energy programs, habitat conservation and restoration projects, and invasive species removal. EACs may make recommendations for the use of open space areas within the territorial limits of their municipality. They can advise on open space protection programs. They can advise on trail and greenway development. They can engage in site plan review and advise on habitat conservation and restoration projects. They can promote community environmental education programs, so that could include trail stewardship training, habitat conservation and restoration workshops, invasive species removal and identification, pollinator plantings, rain barrel workshops, and any other public education on environmental issues that is deemed necessary. They can index unique natural areas for the purpose of recommending proper use, so that could include doing environmental resource inventories, engaging in advising on stormwater management plans, sustainability, or climate action plans. And they can advise on the acquisition of real property within territorial limits for environmental purposes. So again, for open space protection, for trail development, and they can also engage in site plan review. Individual EAC members bring a wide range of experiences to their engagement on the EAC, and they use this expertise and experience to research issues, develop policy proposals, and to help inform decision-making at the local level. They can also lead on-the-ground projects and plan for new initiatives and or lead education efforts within the community. There are a few prohibited activities, a few things that EACs don't do. EACs do not make land use or other regulatory decisions, they only advise. They do not take the place of planning commissions or parks and recreation boards. Instead, they work collaboratively with these groups in order to advance similar goals. And they don't engage in independent environmental advocacy because an EAC is an integral part of local government. They need to be on the same page as their local government. Some essential tips as you get started. It's important to always work with, not against your municipality. So understand your local government structure, who works where and does what. It's a good idea to be familiar with your local ordinances. And when you're setting your project priorities for the year, for 3 years, whatever. It's important to share those ideas with elected officials early and make sure that you have the support you need to move ahead with those projects. And again, when you're dealing with other members of your EAC and elected officials or municipal staff, it's important to always respect differing points of view and approaches to a problem. All this goes back to building relationships. It's really important to build strong relationships within the council itself and also with your municipal staff and board. So some ways to do that, to attend meetings of other municipal boards and commissions and invite them to do the same. See and be seen. Have folks get to know you, know who you are. Get to know your local elected officials and underscore the role of the EAC as a resource to be tapped in those meetings. And it's very helpful for an EAC to have a staff liaison to sort of help build those relationships and those ties. Organization will be key to your success as an EAC. You must prioritize your projects, set up systems to evaluate your progress, and keep detailed organizational records of your activities. So this is sort of where you all are at this point. We've gone through a little bit. Does anybody have any questions at this point before I move on? Okay. Hearing none, we will move right into the next section. So these early meetings are where you're going to start getting to know each other, sharing your relevant background and experience. And I was glad to hear a little bit about all of the members at the beginning of this afternoon's meeting. It's also, these early meetings are a good opportunity to begin discussing those issues that need attention within the municipality. One of the first things you'll do is you'll set your meeting schedule for your new EAC. These meetings should be regular and consistent. A lot of municipalities will set it up for the third Tuesday or the fourth Friday, whatever you decide works best for you all. They should be regular and consistent and not conflict with any other municipal boards and commissions. Once you have those meeting schedules, it's important to share them with the municipality so they can publicize them on the website, on the calendar of meetings. All meetings must be held in a public place and conform with the Sunshine Act. And they must leave room for public participation and public comment at every meeting. The 3 to 7 members of your EAC are appointed by the governing body. And the governing body also selects the EAC chair. The rest of those positions, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, those are all selected by election from the EAC and usually at the first meeting of the year. One of your first activities will be to set the bylaws, and that will include the detail on how you run your meetings, how your organization is set up, and how you operate. Can include other information on membership, attendance policies, order of business, etc. There are examples of bylaws at the We Can Serve PA library site, and that is linked later in today's program. So if you're looking for an example of other EAC's bylaws, you can find them there. Well-run and efficient meetings boost EAC energy and effectiveness. I don't know, I'm sure all of you have sat in on meetings which are poorly run. They run on, they have no clear focus. That is not a good way to get started. So it is recommended that at least the chair who runs the meetings, if they're not experienced at running meetings, do a little background research on how to run meetings, set an agenda, etc. It really helps to keep things focused and moving right along. The agenda is your #1 tool for an effective meeting. You send your agenda to members in advance with plenty of time to review, and keep your meetings to a reasonable length. Usually between 60 and 90 minutes is standard. There may be times when you need to schedule a longer meeting for a particular topic, but it should be, for the most part, meetings should be reasonable length. And it is the responsibility of the board chair to keep the meetings focused and moving forward. And that includes cutting things off if it starts to go too long and redirecting folks if needed. Agendas should always allow time for public comment, allow time for new business, and allow time for general comments from the members. You are also responsible for keeping accurate records. At the end of each year, you will be responsible for a a report of activities to your municipality, and that is also shared within the municipality's own annual report. It's a good idea to designate a secretary to record minutes, and this person must attend every meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same person, but oftentimes it is a good idea to have consistency there, so the meeting minutes are always recorded in the same way, and they're always recorded in the same place. It's your responsibility to provide your meeting minutes to members and to the municipality in a timely manner. A lot of times meeting minutes for boards and commissions are posted on the municipal website, and that also goes back to being, under the Sunshine Act, everybody can see what you've talked about, nothing is being hidden. Historical minutes should be maintained by the secretary and in a central municipal location. Again, EACs are responsible for producing an annual report of activities, and it's included in the annual municipal report. It should include progress on all ongoing projects as well as completed projects, and may include necessary updates to your priorities for the coming year. Beyond the 5 to 7 members of your EAC, you may form standing or special committees to focus on particular issues of importance. If you bring in outside folks to serve on these committees, those folks are not official members of your EAC. They would be more like an associate member. Examples of standing or special committees could include land use, water resources, sustainability planning, public education, the list goes on. And again, while EACs may only have a maximum of 7 voting members, there's no limitations in statute preventing the establishment of associate EAC programs. Associate members can't vote, but they can participate in all other activities and they can serve on those standing committees. It's also a good way to bring in people from the outside who may have an interest in stepping into the EAC when folks step down. So Act 148 enables local government to appropriate funds for the proper and effective operation of an EAC. The amount of the appropriation is determined by the municipal government. It should be enough to cover basic expenses that enable effective functioning. So some of those common expenses could be printing and distribution of meeting and educational materials, affiliation dues payments for their members, registration fees, travel expenses to attend conferences and other professional development, and speaker and consultant fees for public education. You want to bring in a speaker, venue, rental, stuff like that. Typical expenses that you would think of. Some other funding sources that the EAC can look to: private donations, they can hold fundraisers. EACs may receive state, federal grant funding by applying through their local government, or they may partner with NGOs to access foundation grant funding, but always discuss your plans to apply for any grant funding with your municipal staff and or elected officials before applying to such grants, because again, with public funding, your municipality has to be, oftentimes will have to be the grant holder, and they may have a plan to apply for that same grant for another project. So you always want to be on the same page when applying for grants. And certain municipalities, the EACs really don't engage in grant writing. They have a person on staff that does that. So if there's a grant you come across that you're interested in potentially going after, you have to talk to your municipal staff first, and kind of get the lay of the land, see how your municipality does it, and go through the proper channels. Here are those resources that I talked about a little bit earlier in my presentation. So each of you should either already have received a link to the EAC handbook, or you'll receive a link to it after today's presentation along with these slides. That's a really great way to dig into the nuts and bolts of EACs. I took all of the information from today's presentation directly out of the handbook, so it's all there, whatever you need to know. The resource library can be found at library.wecanservepa.org. That's where you're going to find those bylaws. You can also find things like sample ordinances, past EAC training videos, etc. there. I highly recommend that EAC members sign up for our monthly newsletter. We share out a lot of information about what's happening with other EACs throughout the state. Also, grant opportunities, training opportunities, etc. It's all in the newsletter. It comes out about once a month. We have a peer support forum. I believe Freda is already on the forum, but you can post, members of your EAC can post there to get answers to their questions. I also post, again, educational opportunities and grant funding, et cetera, interesting articles that I come across there as well. So there's a lot of information there. And you can attend We Can Serve PA events geared towards EACs, including an annual EAC Network Conference that we hold virtually every year in February. That'll be coming up February 24th. And the fall gathering, that's usually held in the Southeast, so it might be a little bit far to travel for you folks, but you're welcome to attend if you can. Any questions? Break here again for any questions.
Just point of clarification, you used public education 2 times, and I think of the school district, but you meant the education of the public or both?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, correct. Yes, I mean geared towards your community members.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so then I wanted to spend the back half of this presentation just talking about some engagement strategies and recommendations for your EAC, because now that you're organized and you're going to get started to work, it's important to kind of introduce yourself to the community and get out there, get your information out there, and start building those relationships. So here's some tips and tricks for how to do that. So 3 keys to successful community engagement. 1, strengthen your relationship with your municipality. Just from hearing who's on today's call, it sounds like you're already well on your way to having a strong relationship with your elected officials and municipal staff. So that is awesome. That is the first key. Raise awareness of your work within your community. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about public education. So you're talking, I should start saying community education. So educating the community about what the EAC is, what the EAC does, its role in the community, and also creating programming that will educate the community on environmental issues. And then once you've raised awareness, you can start building a base of support within your community. So one important thing to remember is that elected officials are a lot like you. They're individuals with many constraints on their time, and the clearer you are in your communications and respectful you are in your communications, the more likely they are to act. So key steps: identify the key players within municipal government. Elected officials, department heads, planning commissions. These are the people that you need to get to know. And you can do that by attending public meetings, and you can find those public meeting schedules on community calendar at your municipal website. You can also invite those key players to speak to your EACs on items of mutual interest. So the more you have this back and forth communication, the stronger your relationship will be. Communication is key. The more the community is aware of your work, the more they can and often will support your work. Building a web presence is important. Most often, EACs will have a web presence on the municipal website. There are occasions where EACs will have their own website, but that is at the discretion of the municipality. You shouldn't think you can go off and make your website without talking to your municipality first. Oftentimes there will be limits on what you can do in that regard. So again, if you're thinking about having your own website, number 1, it's a lot of work. You have to have folks that can do that kind of work and keep it updated. But you also have to have the permission of your municipality. Whatever option you choose, make sure you keep it up to date. Check the site often for information that needs to be updated. And if you're on your municipal website, make sure that you know what the process is for submitting updates. How much information can you put there, and when do they need those updates by? Facebook can be a good option for EACs who want to have sort of their own more self-controlled Web presence. A Facebook page is public facing and allows your EAC to control the information that's posted. You can also set up a group. This could be public or private. It could be just within members to communicate with each other, or it could be more public that members of the Erie community could join. And that's a good way for folks to communicate with each other, but you have less control over what's posted on the group. You have to moderate. Considerations for Facebook post frequency. Again, you have to know what your capacity is as a group. You can start with just a few posts per week and work your way up to more. Consider what content you're going to prioritize in your posts. Generally, information that's relevant statewide or regionally applicable is good. Environmental best practices that are generally applicable, that's good as well. And moderation. So I would recommend developing a policy and assigning responsibility of moderating public posts and comments to a specific EAC member or members. And that way, if you have a policy, everybody's following the same policy. Newsletters can also be another good way to get information out about your EAC and its activities, but it's recommended that you would do a newsletter in addition, not instead of website. Couple options. Municipal newsletter, you can get information into the municipal newsletter, or you could have your own sort of e-newsletter. Pros and cons, it's easier to get started with a municipal newsletter, but your information could get lost or may not be published if you don't meet certain deadlines, or if they go over on the amount of content they can put in, they have to trim things out, yours could get cut. You have more control of the content in your own newsletter, but it's challenging to develop your list and you have to continually develop content. So again, it all comes back to capacity and what your group can manage. If you're going to participate in the municipal newsletter, some things to keep in mind. You have to follow submission guidelines, and some of them are pretty strict. You may have a very strict character or word count. You have to know who to contact, and you have to keep track of those key deadlines. They're not going to take information about your, rain barrel workshop if it's only, 2 weeks from today. It's not going to make it into that newsletter. So you have to kind of be proactive and make sure you keep track of all of those key deadlines and timelines of when the newsletter comes out. If you're starting your own, there are different platforms that you can use for list management. You could go as old school as an Excel or Google Sheet, but you could also use some fairly low cost options would be MailChimp or Constant Contact to manage your list. You could set your frequency, quarterly, monthly. Again, your capacity will determine this. Probably quarterly is a good place to start if you're doing your own. That way you're only trying to come up with content for 4 times a year. And then in terms of the logistics of developing content, it's a good idea to appoint an EAC member to manage this and consider having a template design that you can just fill in the blanks every month and you're not reinventing the wheel every month. So EACs don't have to go it alone. You can identify what other groups are doing in your community and find ways to help. That's a good way to get started and also to build relationships. You can work with other community and nonprofit partners to expand your reach and effectiveness. So some potential partners could include local or regional groups such as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, churches, libraries, schools, watershed associations, neighboring EACs, colleges and universities, planning commissions, and grassroots organizations, or there's statewide organizations that you can partner with, including We Can Serve PA and some of the others listed here. So for those educational opportunities that you're providing to your community, you can get inspiration from the work that other EACs have done. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. All right, that brings me to the end of my presentation. If anyone has any questions, my contact information is also here if you would like to follow up with me after today. But I'd love to hear from you. I love my work with the EACs, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
This is Jackie. Carol, I just want to say thank you for that presentation. I know that I've looked through the guidebook, and I encourage, if you haven't looked through it yet, to I can send out the link again to look through that a little bit more. It's very easy read. It's very user, it's easy to understand. And some of the other resources that you mentioned in there, I'm excited to look at, like the forum and get involved in that. I think that would be very helpful if we have other questions that we can bounce off other groups and see what else is out there. So, thank you. I do have a few comments about some things, but I'll hold that for the end.
Carol, one of your last slides had provide educational opportunities. Could you go back to that? I'm not quite sure what that was referring to.
So this is, an opportunity. Some EACs will do things like rain barrel workshops or pollinator planting workshops where they train community members on specific environmental issues.
Okay, so related to some environmental issue.
It can be a range of topics. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
You had mentioned in the presentation that there were other municipalities in the network, obviously. Erie's kind of relative to other municipalities, maybe a larger or a smaller population. Could you tell us some of the other EAC network places that we might recognize to get a sense of the network?
Well, there is a group finder tool where you can find all of them. If I go back to, oh, I didn't put the group finder on here. I will share it with Jackie, and she can share it out with everyone after today's meeting. So we have a list of all of the groups within the network, and you can search it by county. A couple that you might be interested in getting connected with sooner rather than later that are more like Erie would be Allentown has an EAC, and Bethlehem has an EAC. So they're more city, larger communities that might be more analogous to Erie.
Does Reading have one?
I'm not sure if Reading has one. I
don't,
don't have
they
all
did.
180 at my fingertips.
Reading's the most
I
comparable
think Reading
in
is one
size.
of the ones that some of us did some research prior to the creation of this, and I think Allentown, Bethlehem, and Reading were three that we contacted.
Okay. I'm not connected with anybody from the Reading, directly from the Reading EAC, but I am connected directly with Lynn at Bethlehem and Tinku from Allentown.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Meadville just organized their. Not the same scale, but close in proximity.
Right.
But they are a good example to at least, and they're in our backyard. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Anybody else have any?
Yeah, Cranberry Township is relatively new. I'm trying to think of the other ones that are closer to you all. There aren't as many in the western part of the state, but they are popping up.
In terms of the bylaws, typically a newly formed EAC, will they use it like what you suggested is look at a template and then tweak it to however they see fit? Do you typically ever review those? Will you take a look at those? No, you don't. Okay.
I mean, if asked, I would,
Yeah.
but it's really, every municipality is unique and in what works for them. So again, you can look at what other municipalities are doing and you can use that as a basis for how you set yours up, but it really has to work for you and your group.
I had a question about, so personally I have been involved with advocacy city just passed an ordinance that I advocated for 6 years. And I know how to distinguish when I am speaking as an individual versus like previously when I was a government employee or whatever. I'm hoping that if we can be clear who we are when we speak, that we don't become disenfranchised as individuals just because we're a member of an EAC. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, we always just recommend that the number one way to get good work done in your municipality is to maintain a collegial working relationship with your municipality. And if you set yourself up as an adversary to the municipality through the EAC, or if the EAC gets a reputation, it's going to be a lot harder for you to do that kind of work. So just when you're advocating personally, just be mindful of that. It doesn't, if you know that you're advocating for a position that may not be the position of the municipality, be careful. Because you want to maintain a good working relationship with your municipality. It's super important to make those small steps move everything forward. Does that make sense?
Think to me, some of mine it has to do with awareness building rather than adversarial stuff.
Right. So I would just say yes. Just be mindful in your private advocacy that you're definitely speaking from your individual perspective and not representing the EAC or being seen to represent the EAC.
I feel like we're going to have a lot more questions later once we close. But no, if there isn't anything else, I thank you for your time, Carol, today, for presenting. I will definitely send the presentation slides out to the group, and I can send the other links too that you mentioned that you I think it was the Finder, some kind of Finder. It must be on the website as well.
Yeah.
So if I
It is, but I'll send you the link in an email.
Okay, if I could just make a few quick comments based off some of the things that are more at the city level. I wanted to mention that we are in the midst of rolling out, well, not quite, but we're in the midst of redoing the city's website. So this might be a good time to,
Again.
well, we are hopefully going to have a much easier, friendlier website. But this might be a good time if we want presence for the EAC. This I can certainly put some placeholders in for the consultant to make sure that we're built into that new website. So that's one thing I wanted to mention to you. I did like the idea if you wanted to do a Facebook presence, absolutely having some kind of policy in place before we would go live to handle certain comments, and then the responsibility of who would manage that page, because I've had a little experience with this. If you create a Facebook page and you do not manage it, or you have somebody taking the lead, then it means nothing. So I like the idea of making sure we have that in place. In terms of the regularly scheduled meetings, I know that was a little painful for me, and I'm sure for you, but as we were set, Kat has helped to put that on the schedule, so we are set for next year's meetings. I know that December of next year falls on Christmas, but we can still have a meeting in December if we would like, but we will have to pick a different date. So it won't be the third Wednesday. But as far as the meetings go, we are all set for the following year. I will go ahead and post those to the times. We'll post the full schedule so that we don't have to do it again. In terms of the governing body and selecting that, I'm not sure if that's something you want to do today. If you want to do it next time, I think that's fine. And establishing the bylaws, we can certainly have some back and forth in terms of just sharing information with the bylaws, and then we can discuss that further at the next meeting, unless you would like to move forward with that at this time.
Didn't it say that the municipality makes the chair? So
Yes, that's right. The governing body is made by the municipality, but you can do the other seats. We can choose the other seats, but I don't know if it makes sense to do it today. I don't think so. I think it would, right. We'll save that maybe for the next meeting or the meeting after. And I'm happy to send out a few samples of bylaws that I find, or if you all want to circulate others that you find, that's fine too. In terms of record keeping and the annual report, any minutes or the agenda I will house on the city's server, and I'll make sure to keep those logged and dated so that we have an accurate, all the minutes we'll have saved into our accounts here. I just wanted to mention that. And then also the grant writer, Carol, you mentioned something about grant funding opportunities. The city does have a grant writer, and so her name is Karen McKenna. So if there are opportunities that you want to go after and you feel that, that it would fit into this board and to our mission, then we can bring that to the grant writer and she can assist us with applying for that. So that's a great resource that the city has. We also have a grant team here as well. So we have a grant administrator and a grant accountant to help in this process. I just wanted to mention that. No, there was one other thing.
Does the city have a newsletter?
I just asked Kat that. No,
I didn't
right?
think so.
Not at this time. The city does have social media pages, a website, obviously.
the calendar.
A calendar. Oh, that was the other thing. If there are, and you don't have to decide this today, but if there are other meetings that you want to attend, I can provide you also with or Kat, we can work together to provide you the meeting schedule and times of when, if you wanted to attend those.
That would be helpful.
Sure, virtually or in person. I think almost all the meetings, there is a virtual option, or not a virtual.
You can watch remotely, but not participate.
Okay, you can watch remotely. And then they're recorded and they're on YouTube. So if you miss a meeting, you can always go back, which is nice.
So what is the relationship of this group to the Urban Forestry Group, the Planning Commission, and the still in process park, whatever they are?
Parks and Rec Steering Committee.
Yeah.
What is the relationship?
Of this, I mean, there's definitely some potential for cooperation,
Yeah.
especially on potential grants, and the whole universe of the pollinator vegetation thing, and it's kind of, there's sort of a gray overlap with urban forestry and
Sure.
even parks, so it'd just be nice to know how.
Well, I think once we establish the framework for our priorities and framework for this board, I'll speak to the Parks and Rec. So just the city received a comprehensive Parks and Recreational plan, grant, from DCNR. And we are in the midst of establishing the steering committee for that group. The EAC, we would like one board member to sit on that steering committee. We have a member of the Urban Forest Committee. We have a member of, we'd like an EAC, Disability Roundtable. We're trying to get an very inclusive group and diverse group of people, because it's a citywide comprehensive plan. So it's in that space that they act as an advisory group,
So
and
are
they
they
assist.
they're
Yeah.
only there till the plan, or are they gonna have a life after the plan is established?
at this moment, it's just for planning purposes, that steering committee, so they will help with selecting a consultant after the RFP goes out. They will be involved in being the voice of the community, recommendations, making sure that whatever committee you are representing is those priorities are put into the plan. So that's one example. However, I think there's a lot more room for this advisory group in different departments. I think I like what Carol said about having an open dialogue and an open collaborative partnership with our council members, with the municipality, with the city, and then with the different departments, and making sure that the priorities that we have in place are being infiltrated, if you will, into all aspects of the city, so that even Public Works, there's that component of that dialogue between the different departments, historic preservation, planning, that type of thing. So I see a lot of presentations and discussions and bringing members of the different departments in to speak to you and to have an open discussion to make sure that those priorities are also set within what their mission and goals are within the department. That's speaking from internally. There's a whole other component that we saw, that's the community education and the focus groups that are allowed, and I think there's a lot of flexibility there, of being able to work with other groups and focus in on certain needs and priorities. So, anything else? I'm taking you 10 minutes after. I'm trying to keep it to an hour. I know that others have other jobs to go to, but no, if anybody has any other comments.
Yeah, I thought we were here for
No,
2
we
hours, so.
we are only, we didn't do the 2-hour session because it was difficult for some to do the 2-hour session. Plus, I thought it would be nice to just break it up. But we are gonna have another kind of training session next time. Yeah.
And before we're done, I'd like to offer everyone here one of my pens if you'd like. Every other time you extend the ink, they light up every other time. It's got my name on there. It says, "Please help me bring more jobs and more people to Erie."
What kind of battery?
I would definitely take one of those two
Well,
pens.
you take one?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
We needed that at the start of the meeting.
Oh. Me too. Green button.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I'll be in touch
Get all the
with.
pens.
I will, yes, thank you, and.
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Sorry?
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Oh, yes,
Second.
great, thank you.
Very good.